Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about green. Can you find the green witch? There she is. Universal Studios spent $300 million over two movies to make sure you like the green witch. That you cheered with her during Defying Gravity, and that you cried with her during For Good. It's okay. I did too. I'd show you a clip of the songs. But the lawyers at Comcast Universal act as the private police force of the imagination. So enjoy this legally distinct stick figure instead. Wicked is supposed to be a story about kindness and friendship and representation. But that's bullshit. Because much like The Wizard, these movies pretend to be on your side. Then they look you dead in the eye, smile, and say, fuck your revolution. Let's dive in. Hi, friends. I'm Gramsci. Welcome to Gramsci's Story Hour. In here, we know that every story has a lesson, and those lessons are usually tricks designed to keep you poor. And if a story is suddenly everywhere, it means the machine sees a threat it wants to squish.
Let's see who's lying to us today.
Who wants to hear a story? Yay! Okay, once upon a time, there was a green girl named Elphaba. She was an activist. And then there was Glinda. She was compliant, but they were best friends. So one day, Elphaba and Glinda went to the Emerald City to speak to the wizard about animals. Why? Because animals weren't just being put in cages, they were being silenced. So Elphaba went to the wizard and said, "This is bad." But the wizard said, "I like the silence. It makes the workforce easier to manage and it maximizes profits." Hey, do you want to come work for me? Elphaba said, "No, thank you," and flew away to start a revolution. She sang a very loud song about defying gravity. She spent a whole year fighting the power and disrupting the system. But then a girl named Dorothy showed up. Dorothy threw a bucket of water on Elphaba. And Elphaba, she melted and died. Just kidding. She faked her death. She decided winning the revolution was too hard. So instead, she ran away to the desert to hang out with her boyfriend, who had been tortured by the state and was now made of straw. And Glinda, she took all the credit. She put on a bubble dress, told the wizard to fuck off, then became the CEO of Oz. The end. Now, that story took me a little over a minute to tell, but Universal Pictures took 2 years to tell it. Why? Did they lose the footage? No! They cut the baby in half because they wanted to sell you the baby twice. Specifically, they wanted to monetize your anxiety about the election. Think about it. Part 1 came out in November of 2024, right after the vote. It ended with defying gravity. It sold us hope and fabric softener. It screamed, "We'll get through this. We'll be okay. No wizard that there is or was is ever gonna bring us down. I'm not gonna sit it." But now, here we are. Part 2. November 2025. The wizard? He won. And how do we feel? Do we feel like defying gravity? No! We feel like we just paid $8 for eggs. Because part 2 isn't about selling hope, it's about selling coping skills. It's a cinematic equivalent of dissociation. Now, to understand why they lie to us, we have to look at the shoes. In the original books, the shoes were silver. Why? Because the author, L. Frank Baum, was actually writing about the silver standard. At the time it was written, America used the gold standard. That was when the government promised every dollar issued represented a tiny piece of gold. Sounds fun, right? But it's actually a trick. Because if money's tied to a limited supply of a very rare metal, it means there isn't enough to go around. It's like playing musical chairs, but the banks stole all the chairs. Well, L. Frank Baum hated that. He wanted the silver standard. Silver was easier to come by. It was considered the people's money. It would allow farmers, like Dorothy, to pay off their debts. See, the slippers weren't just a fashion statement, they were a symbol of economic revolution. Yay! But then, in the 1939 movie, MGM made the slippers red. Why? Sure to show off Technicolor. But also, World War II just started. America knew blood was coming. So the shoes stopped being about economics and started being about violence. The movie taught us the only way to get home after a long, scary battle is to click your heels together 3 times, then drop a house or an atom bomb on your enemy.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Make no mistake, color is a big deal in this. And it's not just the shoes. In the 1939 movie, Glinda had reddish hair, like blood. But in the Bush era, the Trump era, Glinda has to be a platinum blonde. Why? Because Kristen Chenoweth is blonde? No! Because if the original novel is about economics and the movie is about war, then the musical is about how to use money to grab for power. And in America, power looks like a Fox News anchor. Now, the movie wants us to think the wizard is this big, scary dictator. Why? Because he silences the animals, of course. Okay, but why does he silence the animals? Because, yes, he needs a scapegoat. A literal fucking scapegoat. But also, he needs a lower class. The system always needs a lower class. It's not just about giving people someone to be mad at, it's about giving them someone to look down on. That way, in creating an us versus them, he gets to tell the humans, you might be poor, you might be sick, you might not even be able to afford health care. But at least you're not an animal, so shut the fuck up. It's the same trick rich landowners used to use to make sure black slaves and white indentured servants wouldn't unite and rebel against them. The thought was, if you keep them fighting with each other, they can't turn on you. Yay! We also see this in how he treats Elphaba. In part 1, right before that very loud song, the wizard offers Elphaba a job, a home. But notice what he doesn't offer her? He doesn't offer her a title or a voice. He wants her to work behind the curtain. He sees her green skin and thinks perfect. She's ugly enough to stay hidden, but powerful enough to run the generator. He wants to use her magic to suppress the animals because to him, she is an animal. That's why he gets so mad when she flies away. Because a CEO may get annoyed if a staff member quits, but a farmer gets violent if the horse gets in a car and drives itself away. Now, it's tempting to think of Madame Morrible as the true villain of the story, the Dick Cheney behind the throne. But she's not. She's middle management. In part 1, she's the corrupt recruiter, identifying and funneling talent, like Elphaba, into the Oz military complex. But in part 2, she gets a promotion. She becomes the enforcer, and she thinks that makes her part of the elites. After all, she's doing all their dirty work. She's summoning tornadoes, she's hunting revolutionaries, she's making super cool military vehicles disguised as pretty pink bubbles. She works so hard because she thinks her work buys her protection. But she forgets the first rule of capitalism: labor is always disposable. So when the scandal breaks and the system needs a body, what does it do? It initiates the Bad Apple Protocol. Glinda arrests her and gets to say, look, we caught the bad guy. The system is fixed. Hooray! Morrible learns too late that being loyal to the elites doesn't make you one of them. It just makes you the fall guy who gets to keep the prison cell warm while the CEO takes his golden parachute back to Kansas. Bye! But Morrible isn't the only one who fell for this bullshit. Let's talk about Nessarose. Because if Morrible thought she could climb the ladder, Nessarose thought the ladder would keep her safe. Now, Nessarose is Elphaba's sister. She's in a wheelchair. But she's also the Wicked Witch of the East. Which means, uh-oh, she spins out into fascism. Why? We're told it's because society abandoned her. All her life, they locked her away in schools and mansions and excluded her at dances, just because of her disability, which means when her boyfriend tries to break up with her, she flips the fuck out. The movie tries to teach us that Nessarose died because at the end of the day, she mistakes connection for possession. And that's bad. But that's not actually what's going on here. Because yes, her story is supposed to be sad. But it's also supposed to be a cautionary tale. Because the truth is, the system set up Nessarose to fail from the very beginning. They gave her a title, but no community. They gave her authority, but no support. And when she inevitably snapped, they pointed at this marginalized woman and said, "See, this is why we can't let them be in charge. They go crazy. They abuse their power. They turn their boyfriends into tin cans." The real lesson here is that power is so hard, so inherently corrupting, it should only be held by very special people. Calm, detached managers who just happen to be from the upper class. You know, like Glinda. Which leads us to Boq. Now, Boq thought he could just nice guy his way out of oppression. He's like the Democrat who voted to open the government even though he got no guarantees on health care. He thinks if he just keeps his head down, follows the rules, and tries to reach across the aisle, he'll be safe. He thinks he can reason with a tyrant. But you can't reason with a system designed to own you. You think you're finding common ground, but you're actually just getting ground up like everybody else. His refusal to do anything until it's too late leads to him being stripped of his humanity. Literally, he's turned into a machine, a hollow man with a job and an axe and no heart who lives to serve the very oligarchy that destroyed him. He's the perfect worker for the capitalist machine. All labor, no opposition, and all because Nessarose can't share. But it's not just Nessarose that needs a lesson in sharing. For the whole movie, Glinda tells us she's good. She says Elphaba is her best friend. But then she turns on her. Why? Because of Elphaba's ideology? Because of her methods? No! She turns on her because of a boy! But Fiyero isn't just any boy. He's a prince. That makes him a resource. To the ruling class, Fiyero is a status symbol, which means Glinda believes she's entitled to him by birthright. So when the lower class girl gets the prince, Glinda doesn't just get jealous. She gets litigious. She views Elphaba's love not as a romance, but as a theft. She thinks, how dare you take a resource you don't deserve? She helps destroy her friend, not to save Oz, but to punish the Poors for reaching above their station. And look what happens to Fiyero as a result. He gets tortured. Graphically. I mean, listen to these lyrics. Let his flesh not be torn, let his blood leave no stain. And this is PG? Of course it is. Kids need to learn early on if the system hates anything more than a radical, it's a class traitor. Because Fiyero didn't just love Elphaba. He helped her in her revolution. That means if Nessarose's downfall is advice to the ruling class, Fiyero is a threat. His fate says you want to step below your station, you want to change things, fine. We'll take your brain, your body, your title, and leave you rotting in a fucking cornfield. It's state-sponsored torture disguised as a sidekick origin story. And Glinda lets it happen. Why? Because Glinda is not a good person. Look at the end of the movie. Glinda learns the truth. She learns that Elphaba is the wizard's daughter. But what does she do with that information? Does she tell the public? Does she clear a dead woman's name? No. She uses that green elixir, that paternity bottle, I guess, to blackmail the wizard into stepping aside. Instead of making things right for Elphaba, Glinda makes a grab for power. And yet, there is a moment at the end of the movie where she almost says something. She almost tells the truth. But then she doesn't. Why? Because Elphaba asks her not to? No, silly! It's because when she looks into the big, wet eyes of a little munchkin girl, Glinda realizes something terrifying. You can't compete with a martyr. If she tells the truth that Elphaba was the rightful heir and a victim of state violence, then Elphaba becomes Saint Elphaba. The public will canonize her. And Glinda, she becomes the replacement. She'll spend her entire life trying to live up to the memory of a dead saint. And she will fail, because she's second best. And the Glindas of the world, they can never be second best. Even Elphaba knows this. She knows a fragile leader is a dangerous leader. It's why she does so much to manage Glinda's feelings. Think about it. Up to that point, Glinda has helped hunt her and baited her. And yes, Glinda ran to the castle to warn Elphaba that the mob is coming, but she doesn't do anything to stop them. If anyone could have calmed the angry crowd at that moment, it would have been Glinda. And yet, what does Elphaba do when she sees her? Does she hatch a plan to fix this? Does she call Glinda out for her part? No! Instead, they both sing an emotional duet about how they both forgive each other equally for everything. Which means, for good, it's sort of like Malcolm X singing a love song to the FBI. Because I knew you.
J. Edgar Hoover.
I have been changed for good. But it doesn't stop there. Elphaba even gives Glinda the Grimory. She gives the most powerful book in Oz to a woman she knows can't do magic. And then, after she escapes, she opens the book for Glinda, remotely, like a car door in a Lexus commercial. And that's because, on some level, even Elphaba recognizes that leaving Glinda alone in her tower, feeling like a fraud with no magic and lots of paranoia, well, didn't they just get rid of that guy? And so she bails Glinda out, not because she's deserving, but because she wants to prevent Wizard 2.0. And that's the scariest thing about Glinda. She makes you realize the wizard isn't just evil. He's irrelevant. He floats away and, well, nothing really happens. The prisons don't open. The animals are freed, but they don't get their voices back. Glinda just sits in the chair, picks up the megaphone, and keeps the show running. She proves fascism is a franchise. The wizard may have built the machine, the surveillance, the propaganda, the fear, but once it's built, well, anyone can drive it. Even Glinda. Now, Elphaba is not without her faults. And to get to those, we have to talk about the lion. Now, in the movie, Elphaba saves a lion cub from a cage. It's her big hero moment. Yay! But did she have a plan for where the lion would live afterwards? No. She just opened the cage, screamed, "Freedom!" and then ran away. She thinks revolution is about defying gravity. It's about flying away and becoming a super cool legend. She thinks she's the main character in a superhero movie. But then, a year later, that same lion hunts her down. Why? Because he represents the dangers of performative activism. Elphaba didn't liberate him. She just gave him PTSD. She treated the oppressed like a prop in her own movie. She wanted the high of being a savior, but she didn't want to do the work of building a safety net. And because the radical was chaotic and scary, the worker ran straight into the arms of a fascist. He joined the mob sent to kill her. This is meant as a warning for every activist out there. Don't bother trying to save people. They won't appreciate it anyway. But it's not just the lion. Let's talk about that fucking ending. Here we are. The climax. The mob is here. The system is crumbling. People need a leader. And what does Elphaba do? Does she stand up and fight? No! She fakes her death and runs away to the desert. Why? For a boy! For the same fucking boy! And really, what else did you think she was gonna do? Think about it. Elphaba may pretend being one of the people, but she isn't. Not really. Don't forget, she was raised by the governor of Munchkinland. That makes her a member of the ruling class. Granted, she may not be as rich as Glinda or as powerful as Fiero, but it also means that even if she plays at being a revolutionary, Elphaba still thinks like a wannabe elite. Look at how she treats Dulcibert. Dulcibert was her nanny. She was the only person who was nice to Elphaba ever as a child. We're supposed to believe this is why Elphaba cares about animals in the first fucking place. But also, Dulcibert is the help, which means when Elphaba finds her fleeing to safety, what does she do? Does she help her escape? Does she give her access to a super cool network of helpers to hide her from the green shirts? No! She tells her to go back. Die for my war. She treats the worker who raised her as cannon fodder. Because deep down, Elphaba still believes that the servant's job is to die for the master's cause. And yet, when the war touches Fiyero, well, Fiyero isn't the help. He's a prince, remember? He's a member of a class even higher than Elphaba's. This means his life is too precious to waste. And so she sacrifices the bear to save the boyfriend. She decides the life of a prince is worth more than the freedom of 1,000 slaves. This isn't solidarity. It's class protectionism. And the film frames this as a beautiful sacrifice. Oh, poor Elphaba. She's so wonderful. She chose the happiness of the masses over the validity of her cause. But notice she's not hiding in wait, plotting and organizing and living on as a continued threat to the system. She never issues Glinda a warning saying, I love you, but if you dip back into fascism, I'll return to fucking destroy you. Hell, she doesn't even officially let Glinda know she's alive. Instead, she becomes a supernatural trad wife in the desert. Her and her man. Her big straw van. Because like two rich kids at Burning Man, Elphaba and Fiyero decide at the end of the day, picking sand out of their hair is easier than picking up the rubble of their own revolution. Because friends, real revolution is boring. It's meetings. It's paperwork. It's being unpopular sometimes. But as soon as Elphaba realizes that she has something to lose, she sells out her movement to protect her peace. Her activism was only fun when it was defying gravity. The moment it became actual gravity, she quit. It's why part 2 feels so icky. It's not because of the songs or the pacing or the performances, because God knows both of those women were brilliant. It's because after all its girl power anthems and its tearful goodbyes, the film teaches us that change is futile. So we shouldn't even bother. So, where do we go from here? Well, here are the nutritional facts for Wicked. The lead paint. It's bright and it's colorful. It tastes sweet, but it also melts your brain to keep you docile. So, here's what you need to spit out. Sympathy for Glinda. She's fine. She holds all the power in Oz. She gets everything she ever wanted. And yes, she lives alone in a palace mourning her only friend, but remember, it's a friend she refuses to exonerate, even in death. Not to protect Oz, but to protect her own image. On the other hand, iron is the good stuff. And yes, it tastes like metal, but it also builds muscle. It makes you better. So here are the things from Wicked you should consume. 1. Remember the original moral of The Wizard of Oz wasn't there's no place like home. It was that money is rigged. So remember that next time someone tells you, you can't be struggling, my stocks are doing great. 2. The wizard did not see Elphaba as a person. He saw a battery. So if your boss tells you we're family here, it means he's going to give you a pizza party instead of a raise. So stop sucking up to the elites. They do not care about you. 3. Elphaba quit because the work got too hard. Do not be like Elphaba. Do not run away. Stay. Fight. And remember, if you try to save people without listening to them, you'll create your own worst enemy. So do good, but have a plan. Because that anger you feel, that part of you that hated seeing the goat professor get silenced, that anger is the only real thing in this film. But please, use it to form a union, not to buy a popcorn bucket. Remember, enjoy the yummy, yummy stories. They're so delicious. But always know what to consume and what to spit out. Till next time, friends.